Well, hello everybody and happy Friday. Welcome to the Just Jump In live stream. We're on Facebook and YouTube tonight, and let me know if you're out there, if you're hiding in the background, say hello so I know who's here with us. I already see out on Facebook family member of mine, Paul. Welcome in, Paul. Great to have you in here. What I ramble on mostly about is model railroading and my attempts at model railroading, and I share mostly my fails and some of my successes. So I'm in. Well, that is a weird thing there. What just happened there? So apparently I've got to try starting just out of the blue. Camera went wonky, but it looks like you all can still see me. So we're seeing if it corrects. Nothing like a little bit of fun with technology. Let's see. Let me come back to you in a minute. So let's see what's going on here. There we go. So we are back. Love having the problems. Tim, welcome in. Nice to see you in here. Tom, welcome. Arthur, nice to see you. Happy New Year to you. I saw your post there. There's a nice little post on the Facebook, and hope everybody is having a happy New Year. I've one big update, and mostly I've been I took the week off, so I could play with toys and do things and do my model railroading, and had to burn off some of my leftover PTO from work, so I went for it and got a few things done. So just give me since I had the camera trouble, just give me a mic check. Let me know if you can hear me, so that I'm not talking into oblivion here. And while you do that, so I did quite a bit let's start with the bigger update. Is we finally, hey Randy, welcome in, happy New Year. We finally have a car. We found a Toyota Sienna, which Gopher Girl really wanted, and we're able to get the financing and make the deal and get it done. And so we have it now, and it's one of those newfangled. Thank you, Tim. Thanks, Randy. It's one of those newfangled cars where you don't need the key; you just press the start button. It's really weird getting used to that. Our last car was 2015, so it had the old you need the key to start it kind of thing. But drove it around a little bit and drove to the hobby shop today, as a matter of fact, and it seems to get to the hobby shop just fine. Go figure. So, okay. So one of the gifts I got, was like a Vallejo model air set. It's considered a weathering set. It has a whole bunch of how many were in here? 18 colors in here, and then it had a bottle of the matte varnish as well. So I had to print another container, I've been printing these. These have worked well with the shelves that I have, but I printed another one of these containers, I guess you call it, and where I have all my paints. I have all the craft paints, I have all the model air paints and everything. I have all my weathering stuff in there, all my decal stuff. everything's in those bins. But I've had a problem with these guys and with this. They don't stand up. If they're not shoved in between things, they don't stand up and sit there. Gopher Girl, welcome in. Nice to have you in here joining us. And so I actually searched for something to get them to stand up. And so I actually searched for mascara and makeup organizers, and I found this guy, which turns out had the perfect diameter on it for each of the holes. And now it stands up in there and is easily accessible. So I have like my weathering powders, panel liner, washes, water effects, oil paints, those things all in one bin. And I have a mix of paints and decal stuff in another. Then I have my craft paints in two more of them, and then I have the model air paints in the other one. So so I did that. Another thing I wanted to try to do with promoting 3D printing and let's see here, to promote 3D printing and kind of do some educational stuff, but more in the form of the primers that I'm doing for the Fusey, which is the quarterly publication of the Thousand Lakes region. So in that vein, I'm trying to do screen capture type of stuff. And I have OBS, and that's what I was using to do the screen capture and do a really simple kind of tutorial of just putting together and this came out really small because I was just trying to do really introductory stuff, very square stuff, but to teach people how to do the basics of CAD drawing and transferring that to a printer and printing it out. So I did these three. And so I don't know that I'll release any of the ones I did. I think I need to have a kind of a script to it and just better flow from a teaching perspective. But I was able to record it and everything and show how to do this sort of thing. So I worked on that some at the beginning of the weekend and everything. And the other follow-up was we talked about this rust effect from AK that I wanted to try. There are so many ways to do rust. I just wanted to try to see if this one would kind of do what I was looking for. And I'll show you some results of my test. And I think a good indication of where this will excel is kind of the picture here where the whole thing is rusted over. So I took a car and let's see if I can pull this out again. Well, it's pretty stuck in there. But I use this on this car, and so I don't know if this is going to show real well on camera, but we'll try. I'll put the light on here to give it some more effect. I kind of want to take I really want to take the bottom piece out, so I did the tires too for this bottom piece. There we go. So, but that's really black and hard to see. So this was a red car, and actually you could see some of that. That's the original color that I didn't. Again, as you know, I'm pretty impatient, and so I didn't let different levels of this dry enough. Hi, Mom. Welcome in. You definitely can catch this later. Um, so what I did is I had gotten this paint. This blue paint is called the steel blue paint. It actually looks pretty nice without the rust on it. For a car paint, it looks really nice. It's a Model Air paint from Vallejo, but I went ahead and wanted this to be a really rusty thing, but I've never seen a well, that's I haven't seen a car, and I didn't look at any pictures, but I haven't seen a car that was completely rusted over. I've seen them that have a huge amount of rust, and I even had my first car had a lot of rust that I had to try and fix. Didn't do so good, but so I didn't really base this on any pictures or anything, but I wanted heavy rust on it. And so so I did go ahead and do this, and it's not horrible. I like the sides of the cars better um for the rust effect. See if I can get this not to be so um I like the sides of the car for the rust effect, like up in here, um up along here is kind of nice. Um, and up in here is nice. I didn't really like these patches because this ends up being textured the way it dries. It feels too big and out of scale to me to have these patches on here. So when I say it looks better if you rust over something for this, because there's so much texture to it, I think it would look great on something that's completely rusted, just like in this picture. I didn't like it as much for this. I think it'll be fine for. Um, I think it would be fine if I had use it for little tiny rust spots around where most of your rust is going to be around the wheel wells and things like that, or even the roof supports would be another place you would find rust. So overall, it's not bad, but I probably wouldn't use this for other cars unless I use it for tiny little spots. Um, Again, here is up close. There's those were all silver wheel wells on them, and so not too bad overall. And I think it has its uses, but there are so many rust effects you can do, um, and you probably can do more with this. You can add in rust streaking and things like that. That would be realistic to it. But so I'm not sure if I'll have. I'm not. I think that if you have like where this would really show well um, on a model railroad is if you have a locomotive junkyard, or if you have a siding where you just have a bunch of retired or used or unused locomotives that have rusted through, putting weeds on them or through them and things like that. This would look great on there. You have a bigger surface than something like this. So um, if you want to, this is $13.99 retail. You could get it slightly cheaper, but have maybe have some shipping with it. But not not a waste of money for sure. I think it has its purposes, and I personally see a like a siding where there are just locomotives or rail cars that they just didn't do anything with, and they're just getting beat to heck by weather and time. Maybe I'll try this with maybe I'll try. I have so many um, pieces of rolling stock that I've just gotten over time that definitely could try it. Yep. Or rusted farm equipment. Anything that sits and is going to be beat up by weather, um, this will work well on. Um, but maybe I'll pick out a car, or maybe I'll print one or something and see how it looks um, using that. So that was one of the projects. I finished this probably after the stream last week. Um, let's go there. Let's throw that up there. So outside of that, the main thing I worked on, and I posted some. Hey Ken, welcome in. Nice to see you in here a little earlier. Um, uh, so what wow, losing my words. Once a show, I lose my words. So what I've been working on is going back, and I said I would start working. I have to finish these, the cars that I have, the shells that I have, but I said I would start working on, after proving that I could get the underbody done through 3D design and printing. I said I would go after doing this. So that's what I spent most of the week on, instead of trying to finish these out, which I really got to get my brain to do. That sort of thing is to finish one project and move on to the other. Otherwise, I'm never going to be number 999 MMR. So, and I showed the first prototype basically, and I for printing and prototype purposes, I cut down what I was doing, but I had designed, did a rough design of the end, and noticed that this one didn't have any of the rivet detail that's on here. This was just getting the main basic concepts down, the sizing down and everything, and was able to do that. Then I wanted to work on the rivet detail. And so I did some work, and I cut these down again so that I'm not wasting, I'm not waiting for hours. I did this with a finer nozzle, finer lines, and the rivet detail didn't really come out. But there's rivet detail up here, over like in an L backwards L here, and in an L shape here, and then down at the bottom. They barely came out over here. I did another one where, again, I was doing a very rough cut of it, but a little bit came out down here, and I can't really see that. You can see that raised piece there. So it has this raised piece on there. So I kept working on it, and let's see if I can get this out here for a second here. Like the underbody too, I've got to find the right position for this so that the supports don't. This is the one I started with here. So I actually went back to the 04 nozzle and a more draft printout of this, and this was adding the doorways for here and adding kind of the ledge that's down here. And now you can see I cut it off here. I have the fuller model, but I cut it off there for printing purposes, and you can see some of that detail now. And so I think the larger layer lines probably help these rivet details out more. Otherwise, I may have to make larger ones. So here's a clean one on this side, except for this part. The door, I didn't finish rounding it on the bottom, but I had to make this part thinner, right, on the bottom here. So if we're doing apples to apples, this is what I came up with. So not too bad on that, and there's the rough cut there. And then we will try and get this on camera. But I did a full print of this, and again with the 04 nozzle, and so stronger layer or larger layer lines, I am getting some of the rivet details to come through, just barely on this one. There's a better look on that side, and I hadn't done the doors on the ends here. So you can see this was the top, and so you can see the rough layer lines. And here's the bottom. This was on the build plate, so this is much smoother. It has some glue on it. You use a glue stick on it. The other things that I did was I taped in the doors, the center doors that I had already worked on this one. And I may still want to redesign these doors. I may want to work on that a little bit. I don't love that, and I don't think these are the final ones. The other piece is the sizing is off, so it's off in here. So there's a gap on this one. I taped this on with it at the very top flush, but there's a gap there. And or there, and I might have retaped it. There's definitely a gap, so there's some fixing that needs to be done there. The other thing is this actually, for some reason, I'm kicking myself, but that's me in measurement, came out just slightly longer. So if I get these flush, you can see this came out longer. And I didn't realize it until I put the underbody in. I wonder what dust from the mine would do to rail equipment. Would it just dust it up and be able to clean it off, or would the iron ore that's being mined actually do anything to the metal on the cars and the engines? So much more work to go, but the other thing that was different here, because I had cut into the two windows here, and there are actually more windows on here, and so it looked a little weird to me, and you can see that the door placement's a little off, but it could be off on this one. I don't think it looks that bad down here, so I'm going to stick with it, but I got to figure out. One of the good things about a program like Onshape is it's called parametric, and so you can go back and change something from earlier that you did, and you don't it should change everything else going forward. The downside to that is it can break things too. So when I attempted to go and just shorten this up, just by changing the original measurement of the length measurement of this, it actually broke a whole bunch of almost every other step. So I have to figure out why that is. The other thing that's frustrating is the measurement is correct. So I'm not sure if there's some kind of, that's too big of a gap, or too big of a difference to be a printer setting. But I was thinking about that. Was it a printer setting or something? But I really don't think it is. So I'm going to have to do some work on that and figure that out. Then additional detail will be put in the interior doorway, and then the end doors. But being that I've generally been able to to get to work through these doors and measurements and everything. I don't see that I'll have any difficulty with the indoors or the interior piece. The other thing I'll also have to work on is figuring out how to create a lip or just a little tiny kind of wedge on each end to keep the underbody in place. The having these pieces in here will help with making sure the underbody stays at the level it's supposed to stay at, but to keep it together and not, come apart. Come apart when it's running will be a key. I also, while the measurements are exact in the programs, the CAD programs you use, unfortunately with the 3D printer, they're not going to be absolutely exact because you're melting, in the case of an FDM or filament printer, you're melting down the plastic layer by layer as it comes out of the nozzle, and you're laying it down and it has to dry. It can settle, it can do things. So if it settles, it kind of can, in fractions of millimeters, can build up and be off a little bit, so so that being said, the other thing here is even though I went with I think this ended up being 8 millimeters instead of 7 millimeters or point. Let me get this out. But I think this is a little bit thinner than this, even though I tried to keep those measurements correct. So get my trusty calipers out. Okay, so I know that this was well, I have it on inches, so it'll help if I do millimeters. Nope, it should be inches. Let's get back to inches. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so this is even a little thicker, and I think that's from the drying. So I had it set at 0.08, I believe, and it's coming in at about 0.085, 0.86. And this one says this one is like 0.89. So it for whatever reason, maybe it's the type of plastic. This is a PLA is probably stronger than this plastic. However, either way, you have to deal with some differences. Not everything's going to be exact. And but it's going to be very close, and I'm very encouraged by it, how it's going, and we'll just keep refining it. So I think that filament, just in the way it settles on the layer, Randy, is can be a problem. There are settings in the slicers, so you can add you can add a little bit to it or take it away. It's especially important with those settings with holes. And let me see if I can find the settings to tell you what they are in my slicer, which is the bamboo slicer. There are a lot, and I'm still not there yet with everything. But there's an XY hole compensation, XY contour compensation. So, when there's assembly issues or especially I've used it with holes. So, because holes, when it's printing around them, can have a problem if it expands or moves when it's drying. And these are like milliseconds, but still have an issue. So you can compensate and grow or shrink the holes or or the contours for anything um, to compensate for that basically. So there are settings to deal with that, and I know I successfully did that with some holes in some prints that I had that needed screws, and they weren't they were measured correctly, but they were not, and they were very small. So I had to use some of that to compensate, and it worked. But I don't know how that would affect like a mid layer kind of thing or exactly how. And I did notice here that I didn't, so you can see here, these are rounded correctly, like these holes here. These are not. I missed that on that one. They're all done correctly on that one side, just not there. So I'll have to go in and fix that. But yeah, so we're kind of on our way with this. And so what this will mean is that for however many of these I need, I'll be able to print them. And printing time for a really high quality shell like this is probably 7 to 9 hours for it to be really high quality. The other thing I have to figure out, as you can see here, is the that roughness, and you can see it on here too. This roughness on here, that's supports, but I can't even get, it's a really, really thin layer of supports because this is on the print bed like this, and there's, this gap in here. It's kind of hard to see, but that little gap in there, it needs supports going across. So the most successful I've been is having flat on its side. If I have it like this, here's an example of the first print that I did, and I had it standing up like this on the print bed, and this is what happened. You can see there's supports throughout, and it didn't support it well. And there, I can alter the supports and see if I could support it well, but that was pretty poor. And I see that Jim Brown, welcome in. I see that you're watching on Facebook as I'm broadcasting on both YouTube and Facebook. So welcome. I appreciate you being in here. So anyway, so I haven't figured out the trick with the supports yet. One of the thoughts is you can use two dissimilar filaments. So the one called PETG can work with as supports for PLA and vice versa, and they don't connect in any way. They're just literally supports for, they don't not connect, they don't melt together. So and I haven't tried this yet, so I should do a test print of one of these um, um, to see if I can get cleaner supports and not have kind of these issues. Now, on this one was a bit cleaner, and again, this blue is hard to see. Um, there's definitely some deformities in here and some issues, um, but it's cleaner than this one because this melted together. Where on here on this one and on this one you can see has a rough edge on one side and it's very flat on the other. This had the supports connected to the top there. This had the supports, that was the top, it was facing like that, and this one had the supports there, and you can see some different results, this one being the cleanest, because it creates a layer with the amount of supports that were in here, and they're called tree supports. With the amount of supports in here, it created a layer that when I was pulling the supports out, it pulled the full layer out. So it was nice and clean there. This one, that whole layer basically kind of melted to the actual print. And so while I was able to get the supports off, there's all kinds of strings in this roughness here. This one worked like this one did, but this was a much more draft print than this was, and so it wasn't as clean. But some things to learn there. This was the hardest thing to learn, and you can see it better on here, is doing these ribs here, and you can see I think that I didn't go far enough with these ribs. I think I need a rib or one or more ribs on the side, or I need to make this a little bit more rounded, because there's some venting details on here and the rest of it's flat here between those. But this was the hardest thing that I could think of to do, and I'm just shocked I was able to do it. I do need to adjust it a little bit on the ends. It's still a little too far, but I was able to do it. And if you look at these two side by side from top down, you can see how much more square this is than this. And I do have some angle to this up here. It's not completely flat. It's a little bit flat here. I just haven't been able to figure out the right curvature. So I could work on that. And or I could just take it as is, and I think it's a reasonable facsimile of the other model. And but those corners could just be a little bit more rounded, as you see there. This is more smooth here, where I kind of have basically three sections here that are, these two have these fillets on the end, and then they're angled upwards. And then this is supposed to be curved, but it's more flat than curved. So something I need to work on. But again, we're getting close. And what that'll mean is that I could have a fully scratch built car. And the other thing that I was working on prior to this, and I had put out a question in the group, in a couple groups. So I designed the area for the weight, and you can see on this one, it has the weight from the manufacturer. So I wanted to find more weight so that I can, put the weights in on this one too. And I get that this may not be weighed correctly. It may need more weight for to comply with the NMRA, but I want to reduce the amount I have. I have car tire weights. I've bought a box of like 250 of them on Amazon. So I have those, but what I would like to do, the nice thing to do would be able to put an interior with seating in, then have room for lighting in the cab. So I still want this type of weight, but I don't have anything to machine the metal myself. So we'll see if there's anything. And then when I did try to fit the cart, this in here, I actually went and fit one of these actual ones in, but you can see it's flush on this side, but has quite the gap on this side. So a bit of work to do to figure that out. But oh, this is coming out. I gotta fix that. So when I had fit this on to test it, again, there's your gap, flush, mostly flush, and there's your gap. So yeah, but with this one, it's a little harder to add because 3D printing, you need supports. It's really not feasible to do wiring like that. I might be able to get away with it on here. This is styrene. This is 4 pieces of styrene together as wiring, and then these are K&S, like music wire, that are fed through these the cross beams. And so for this, I might be able to get away with adding something like this to the middle, but I don't have any problem adding that from styrene and then using the music wire for the rest of this, and getting the rest of the pieces. Like that piece isn't on. Let's do it like this. And you can see I was off from the Model 2. These are back a little bit, so I could fix that, or I leave it alone. It'll still work the way it is. The wheels will still work here. I have to cut these off. I made these too long. So I have to get rid of those. Here's another issue with 3D printing in place. It didn't print any detail on the inside. It's all rough here because this was the side that was down and needed supports. I could print it like this. I had trouble a long time ago when I did it, that this was so small, it was really hard to get the supports off of here, but that could be done and then sanded so that you could put a weight in there. But this one right here is 3D printed. Those were not 3D printed on the inside. Those were added pieces of styrene, not styrene, of injection molded plastic, just to give it an interior. But that was all 3D printed. And that's, so you see all the grating missing on there and everything. That's from the supports. So anybody, I don't know if this sparks any interest from anybody, but anybody interested in, learning more about CAD programs and designing, or would you just be interested in printing and learning more about the printing process so that you can print already made models? For me, Ken, I have to see how it comes out, and that's why I print a lot of. It's really a prototyping machine until you do your final print, um, at least on the FDM side of it. Um, so so that's why I have so many prints. Is now that I know that this, for instance, is too long, I have to go back and fix it because the measurements weren't right. So for me, um, I I would need to get the design right, what I think is right, and then translate it over. So yeah, and can that's fine. You can watch a struggle and then reap the benefits if you come over to HO scale, or in Randy's case, N scale. Um, you know, I've resisted this long with S scale, and I probably will resist a bit longer because I can't, I have enough trouble getting the measurements right. Um, let's see if I can. I don't know if I have the bandwidth, unfortunately. Trying to see if I can pull up the model in Onshape. So the pictures that I showed you um, on um, the thumbnail, those are direct pictures from Onshape. So but let's see if I can share this. Leisure Shoot, welcome in. I'm, and I'm not, I've yet to work with resins. And they print in a different way too than filament printing. So I wonder how they deal with that kind of the melting points and the shrinkage and that sort of thing. So, okay. So, just to kind of show you here, this is the model that I created. Sorry. And on the left side are all of the commands basically that make this happen, that put this together. Let's see if it, there we go. So basically you have to draw the parts with what we call a sketch. So if I go into the sketch, and what's good about parametric, like I said, is you could go back in as far as you want. So here's what I started with. This is the very start. This is the this is what makes this. And your two very basic pieces with any 3D printing, 3D shape with most programs, are you're going to have a sketch where you create this, and then you have an extrude, which is going to make your shape. So I took the face of the sketch, and I extruded it by the width that it needs to be. And that's your start. And then you do this with all kinds of things. So then there was another sketch done here, and another extrude. And then there are all kinds of other commands to get to there may be other ways to do this, but to get this to be a shell, there is a shell command, for instance, and that is right here. And this, so I went from that big block to creating the shell. to start with. And then essentially the windows, the door frames, put the holes on. So let's do this. The holes on for the marker lights. Those are all extrudes in the negative. You extrude, you remove. So you remove the windows, and then you can shape the windows. So these windows were all, you can see them highlight when they're highlighted. They're all square, but I had to round them off with a fillet and get that rounding. And so you can see on the model here are the shapes without the fillets. So to save time, I didn't go and cut out every one of these windows. I repeated these windows, and I removed the face of them all the way through to the other end. The same thing with the center door. I only cut out I only shaped one center door, and then I extruded and removed all the way through the other side, so making workflow a little faster on that. The hardest part so far on this whole thing, again, the two hardest parts. So here you can see all of the rivet detail put in, but it's getting these shapes. So this you can see is angled, getting the right or close angle so that it fits, so that the underbody fits correctly, so that the look is correct, and then getting these tubes basically, you could, if you can find a small enough, if you're building this from styrene, for instance, you have to find a small enough half circle or be able to miraculously cut a really long half circle out of the right size tube. The difference here is I had to come up with the right size, where I literally went in with the calipers on top here and did as close of a measure as I can with the tips of the calipers, and it did a pretty decent job that way, to get what I need. I had to do some guesswork on these angles because I don't have the thing that I used was from Harbor Freight, which was recommended to me on one of the streams, was this. And this is really big for doing HO scale models and figuring out angles. And so I had to do my best to measure I had to do my best to measure and figure out angles on this. And so it was pretty inexact. It was close, but needs a lot of work. However, I mean, that's just kind of the basics, the basic way. And 3D CAD programs are pretty similar in how they get there, but there are some programs that are deeper than this one that can do different things. For some can do them better, but I learned this one, and there were, having so many, I went all in and decided to focus and learn this one. And so every time I do something with it, I learn something new, or I get better at it. So this, I don't think I could ever come close to this had I started with this. If we go to all these prints that I've done, all end up being practice. From the very first one were these fuel stands. And I've gone on and continued to practice and and I've gotten better as I went. There's a lot of educational stuff on Shape's website that you can get for free. There's plenty of people that do tutorials online, and I go back to them and I look for, if there's a specific thing I want to do and I can't figure out how to do it, I'll just go out to YouTube and search for, whatever that command that I want to do or whatever I want to try to do. So if, for instance, we go back into the shell, if I want to figure out if I didn't know how to make multiples of the same shape, I would go out to YouTube and search for that, and there would be a bunch of videos on that, and that would help me get through doing it. And I would do it on my model, and so that helped me understand that, again, that I didn't have to do each individual window, space it out, do another window, space it out, do another window, and then go all the way around. I figured out how to, that there's this linear pattern that you can use. So you create one, then you pick how many you want to do and how distant you want them from each other, and what direction to go, and then you have your linear pattern. So what I would have done here with these 5 windows is I would have had one that I created. I would have said that I want to clone 5 times, or 4 times, I'm sorry. And then I would have had to pick a direction. So I would have come over to the edge here of this cutout, picked that, selected that as the direction, the end of that, and they would all move to the right. And then I would adjust to get the right spacing between windows. I would just continue to adjust that. And that, so learning that helped improve the output. And, I just, when there's, I wouldn't have been able to do this for sure, starting out. The thing that I started with, and it took a lot of work to get it done, was these stands for, I created these stands for YouTube certified. That's correct. I created these stands for a tank car that was going to serve as, on the team track, a fuel dealer would have the fuel tank filled up, and it was an old old fuel tank rail car with the bottom taken off. So I also had to do the bottom of the rail car too, because I took off the frame that it was on. It was a metal frame. That was interesting what not to do. But this was the first one. Then the underbody of that shell was there, and that's what's on my layout now, or on my modules now, as a little, fuel tank on the side of the track, that when a tank car comes, it would fill that up. And then I have a tank truck that would then take the fuel from this tank and distribute it where it needs to go, or that's the idea. So that I could have a fuel dealer on the layout and have a tank car on the team track. But that was the first one. And I actually didn't print this one. A family member printed it before I done that. But I've gone from this, which isn't that basic, but it's mostly basic. The curved part is the hardest part in there. Then, going from that to the underbody, or this shell again, is a pretty big leap, but I've been doing it for a little while. So, and I really enjoy it. It's made creating the cars, and it's made, I still have the issues with measuring things. I'm terrible at measuring things. So even with more precise stuff here, and the fact that this program will measure for you, I still have those problems, but they're much reduced, because they're a little more exacting. You can, as we said, or this came out too long, even using the same measurements. So I have to figure out what the other issues are with it to fix that piece of it. But to scratch build this, to cut out the windows and everything, this is, just doing this on here is one thing, but to scratch build it and do it and get everything perfect and right, and get these fillets in here right and everything by cutting styrene. I'm never going to be good at cutting styrene. I don't have the dexterity for it. So I choose to create in a different way, and I choose to do that with 3D printing. I'm still doing the work to create it. I'm looking at a model and doing it, or if in the case of, when I did the flat car from the presentation from the Lone Star region, I'm still doing it visually. It's giving measurements. I'm having to take measurements on here, but that's giving me the measurements, and I'm creating it in a program here and working through that. Creating the underbody and doing all of that. And for instance, this underbody, in recreating and creating this, I actually had to scrap what I did with I had to scrap the original one I did in Onshape and just redo it, because I couldn't backtrack. Going back and backtracking, I couldn't fix the center sill and the bolsters when I was altering this piece, the altering the rest of it. So I actually had to go back and start over. So when I did the flat car was my third or fourth attempt at that flat car. I had to start over a bunch of times. So Tom, behave. That is not a topic that any of us want to discuss. Where's my moderator when I need her? So anyway, I'm going to continue to share along with this, and anybody that wants to learn about it. I'm not an expert on it, but I'm willing to share my journey with it, and we'll continue, because at some point I'm going to finish these, and I'll need some cars for merit, but I really am. The passenger cars are all going to be considered super detailed, and are going to be my filler cars, where I'm working on the gondola, which I still have, still have to finish that one. I was looking again for the right type of ladder when I was at the hobby shop today, and nobody makes the right type of ladder. So there might be a concession there, or I may figure out how to finally print it correctly. That's the main thing. I did work on the bolster, and I ran into a problem with Onshape that I haven't been able to fix with the bolster, but it was apparently how I was creating the cross beams of the bolster didn't allow me to line them up correctly. But let me see if I have that up anywhere. So all right. So let me see if I can share again here, and I'll show you. All right, and let's do this. So you can see here, a 256 screw was not fitting the way they had the bolster designed. And I don't know if that was me and measurement issues, but I did actually, just to get that in there, the 256 screw, I actually extended the middle piece um, that you will put down in styrene. I made that larger, and it barely held that hole. You can see this is a little bit messier here, and I don't know what I was doing with the styrene. I was filling it in, um, but um, it wasn't satisfactory. It wasn't holding it in, so I actually extended the bolsters to mat. I extended that piece inside the let's see if I can get that centered. So I extended that bolster piece. I did this originally, but the edges of the bolster were thin. They were the original size, so I made them the size of the piece in the middle. This makes it a bigger hole. Now I can extend that out a little bit here too. Um, let's see here if I can. I don't know if I have the measurements completely correct. It doesn't look quite the same as the presentation, but it starts to rise up on the right. You can see. I could certainly extend this out. And it works, the flat car that I did was styrene, and I was able to get the bolsters to be okay, and everything works fine. But as I print, this may be an area where you deal with shrinkage again. So there are things that can be done, but one of those things is the trouble I had was every time I moved one bolster on one end, on the other end it moved too, and it was the way I put them down. I didn't do them individually, and so it took me a while to jerry rig it and figure it out and get this other side to line up, for everything to line up correctly. I haven't printed it because I've been working on other things, but I might just print a cross section of it, a small piece of it, to see if it comes out correctly, or comes out better, I should say. And so those are the main things. Now, the other thing here is there were supports in here, so that's why this all looks rough under here. It still had its shape. So what I did, because this was one full print to get everything's together, so there's basically three parts to this. There is the shell around the sides. There's the floor. I made this floor separate. And then the underbody here, which you're seeing on the screen in on shape. If I can get it to, so that's the underbody. So that has all the shapes on it that are needed. And having those three separate and print and gluing those three together, I think will ensure that I can get nicer prints out of this. So I don't need, the supports will be different, and I actually won't need supports for this one upside down, where when this was printed originally, it was printed like this. So it was printed with this side down, so it needed supports under here. Now they came out fine, and it's not super messy. It's presentable, but it's not quite as good, and I don't know where my other versions are of this, but it comes out much better printed on its own. Then I can glue the three together. The other thing by having this floor piece separate is I could put, and I could do two floors actually in here, because we're not super worried because they're thin enough that it's not going to throw off the look of the inside. I could do two floors here, as a matter of fact, as I think about it, and then I could put weights in between there, and I have a place for the weights that way. Otherwise, if I'm going to have a load in here, I can just put weights in here and don't have to worry about that. But and then the ladders, I think are it, and then it's pretty presentable for evaluation at that point, and making sure that the bolsters obviously work. So this one's been sitting as I've moved on to other projects, but but I've got to get back and just finish it up. I've got to focus on it instead of moving on to the next and the next thing. So at some point all of a sudden I'll have two of these done. And then if I can print them out, I'll have pretty quickly a third and a fourth done. Then I'll then finish the gondola, and all of a sudden, I'll have basically 3 of the 4 car types. And I want to do that coil car as the 4th, and then the other 4 will be passenger cars, and then I can move on to the other thing, which is motive power, which I will convert the cab car. I'm pretty sure at this point I'm going to convert the cab car to motive power as I work back on the at adding a motor underneath the car. I'll have to get back with the suggestions on that one and see if I can get some help and go through how to do that. I don't hide my mistakes well either. Everybody says the best modelers hide their mistakes. Well, I don't hide them well, so I figure I just share them. I mean, that's the best way to do it. If you're doing better because I screwed up, I'm happy with that. So let's move to. Why can't I switch those up? That's how I can do it. Okay. So the other motive power piece was the NMRA maintenance vehicle, and since I got that airbrush, I decided, hey, I'm going to try out the airbrush. I need things to try it out on. So this is a preliminary model for the NMRA maintenance vehicle, and so I was testing my new airbrush out, and trust me, this is not the way this looks is not because of the airbrush. It's because of the user of the airbrush. It's anyway. So, but I've put this aside anyway because I want to get the passenger cars done, get the gondola done, and I still haven't pulled the trigger on getting the gondola. I'm just worried about the measurements because the pictures just aren't, there are no pictures out there that are good enough for the measurements for the gondola. That gondola is very odd with the heights that you need for the tranches that hold the coils, and then the fact that it's a shorter car that has these longer couplers. and coupler. They have like coupler arms, and then the couplers that come out at the end that fill out that car. Let me see if I even have a. I'm sure I don't have necessarily. Don't know if I have it. I'm going to check to see if. Nope, that is not it. Let me see if it's in here to show you this gondola again. Or this, I'm sorry, this quail car, not gondola. Let's see. Let's see here. Cool steel cars. Come on. You can do it. So if anybody's into this is a pretty nice website if anybody's into. Let me pull that up. What did it do? Let's try this again. Come on. You can do it. This is the Conrail Historical Society. And they have this photo archive. And this is Class G41A. It's a little bit slow. Let me see if I can. I want to see if I can find a nice shot with the. There. Let's see if we can get this one to come up. All right. So, as you can see here on this left side, it has this whole arm, and then the coupler on the end of that arm. So figuring out how to measure that, that's one that I'm not so excited about figuring out and looking weird. Also this height's a little different. It's almost like it's one of the lower gondolas, which actually this one is considered one of the kind of the lower gondola. So size wise, I can probably get the ends just fine. But these tranches, this middle one has a certain height to it. The ends have a certain, getting the angles right and everything. And then also getting this, the side sill right, because if I'm going, the trouble with going off the flat car is this is going to be a different size. It has some different features to it with, that just make it troublesome. So I'm still contemplating. I'm still hemming and hawing buying the Tangent model. I can get it cheap with discounts. I can get it down to, I think, 43 and change plus shipping. I think it goes back to $48 or $49, which would still be cheaper than most places, all places. I think the cheapest other than that before shipping was $50 and like 68 cents or something like that. but at least having that in hand will give me the measurements, and I can go off of that. So, I mean, that will be, and so that will make, I'll have a passenger car, because one has to be a passenger car, and I'll have the flat car, which I've already done and merited in. I'll have the gondola, so that'll be, for instance, 2, the gondola 3, and then this coil car will be 4. And then the other 4 can be the passenger cars. So that's the fun I'm having with model railroading. What's everybody else having fun with? Randy, are you anywhere near done with your hotel? Ken, what are you working on? And Tom, you must be working on something. Are you still building cars for other people, or? Yes, and for one thing, Randy, it's, it's these. I mean, well, here's the thing: is where did Tangent got the opportunity? I'm assuming to actually measure a car, to put theirs out. They have the picture of the car, that that they use, but there are no measurements on there. Still trying to finish up the lights. Okay. Yeah, it's still got the PRR on there, which is really neat. And if I could do a weathering job like that, that would be pretty awesome. I do have. I did show you these the last time, but I do have I do have decals for it, so I'll be ready to go with those. These are for the these are for the G41A coil car. So I've got these ready to go. What it doesn't have, though, is the old PRR logo, which would be neat to have on there. And these aren't, look, they have 2 different 2 different CR letters. The numbers look exactly the same on here, but the letters look a little different. They don't look as good as they do. They don't look as rounded as they do on the picture. But I guess it would have been nice if because there are still PRR cars out there. Although, thinking about it, that might just be a PRR car that they that they didn't make a Conrail car, just the CR on it, and left the logo on. So. Yeah, that's I envy you for doing that with N scale. So Tom, when you're saying you're trying to finish up the lights, are you lighting your whole layout at this point? Are you having trouble with the lighting, or? I haven't, because I really am not working on the layout. While I've got buildings that I've wired up for the Just Plug system, I haven't plugged anything in. I haven't put it on my layout or anything, although I could. I have a specific area where most of those buildings are, so I could certainly drill down, but I've been really trying to focus on car design and stuff. So. And and anybody else out there, what else? What are you guys working on, or girls working on? I know Gopher Girl really wants to get back to her Legos, and she got me Legos for Christmas. She got me the she got me Jango Fett's helmet, and the helmet that went together was pretty cool. Yeah, that's gonna look really nice with the downtown having the street lighting and everything, and then having lighting at the at the mine and stuff will look really nice. So how did you do it, Ken? I really, when I was doing that for the structure, for the Conrail structure that I did, I think I did it the hard way. Um, there you can do the tape, you can use the tape, so you can use like m- uh, you can use like microsol, I believe it is, and use or use alcohol and then use tape. What I was doing with that is I used alcohol. I used like 70% alcohol, and I just was rubbing it off um, with Q-tip, and I had forgotten that I could just use tape to pull some of that off. Now, um, I've some of the factory stuff that's done is really, really hard to take off, and I use 70% alcohol to do that, and I didn't think it affected it. The only other alcohol is I've 99% alcohol, because that during the pandemic that was the only alcohol I could find to get. Um, so I have a ton of that, but I've used that to take the paint off of cars, so I don't, so I know I'm not to use that for decals. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So you probably would just have to scrub like I was doing with the alcohol. Um, so wouldn't it be nice if we all had like the pad printing machines for us to just do our own cars, putting the paint on and the decal, the lettering and numbering on the cars. If we just had one of those machines at home to do, that would be awesome. We'd all have perfect lettering and numbering and colors and all that stuff. So yeah. No, I know most of my audience is on YouTube, but if anybody is out there on Facebook, please say hello and let me know what you're working on as well. So anyway, so this you always get into rabbit holes when you start looking, and so this archive, now you're gonna have to use these pictures commercially. You would need to get permission from these individual artists, but this photo archive's pretty neat. There's plenty on um, Railroad Picture Archives on net, but this is pretty extensive, and um, um, pretty it's pretty extensive, and lots of different things to look at. So you absolutely could go into um, you could end up doing some damage to your time. So, I had talked about previously about finding the right color for, um, Conrail blue. But what it comes out to for the stuff that's Conrail blue, they're all different colors. It just depends on where you're at, as to what colors they look like. And of course, pictures can be um, deceiving, but you can see this one here, this GE C30. has some weather to it and is lighter, and it's a lighter picture taken. So it's going to have a different looking blue, and you can see on the side that it just seems to be weathered in some, between light and dirt, because you can see on the nose it's a different color blue. And then you get something like this EMD engine, and it again might be the exposure and everything, but it's this much darker looking. So I don't think you have to have perfect color. Unless you lived it and were there and remember exactly what the color looks like. You're going to get all different colors. And as we all know, Conrail had different equipment from different, they bought from everywhere, basically just like Amtrak did. So that's a neat looking picture. Sidetracked by this, but that's really neat looking. I don't know if it does justice on the video. Okay, see you later, Mom. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah. And let's see here. So outside of that, I'm going to leave that picture up. I really like that picture. You can barely see the Conrail in there, and the light looks really nice off that fog. Yeah, that's what I'll continue to work on. So I basically have, the weekend left, and then it's back to work, and it's a new year and new crap to deal with at work and everything. But I'll certainly be working through this car more, and hopefully I get somewhere over the next couple of days. It's supposed to warm up here a little bit. I got out of the house fine. The car doesn't have. We thought the car had a heated steering wheel. It doesn't have a heated steering wheel, so that might end up being a little cold. But it does have heated seats, and so that felt really good, getting in the car in 0-degree weather and having a heated seat and getting moving. So really happy to have the car back and being able to get things done. But hopefully the rest of the weekend will be dedicated to just continuing to work on the modeling. And I hope everyone else as well has a good weekend and does some modeling. I did look. I didn't see any events and stuff, and I know Springfield's coming up, and I didn't see anything local. So that was a little disappointing that not have something to go to. But if you're going to Springfield, enjoy. It's always a good time there, and one of these days I hope to make it out there. But life gets in the way sometimes. So it won't be this year, maybe in 2027. And otherwise, I know that we have in about 10-11 days, I think we have our virtual meeting for the Twin Cities division. So I'll be looking forward to that. Sounds like we have maybe have some short clinics and things to go through on there. Then in February we have our operations retreat, and we have another virtual meeting with more clinics there as well. So we're gearing up in the new year in the Twin Cities division for a good fun year. I think in March is when we have our RPM, and Not sure what we'll have in April, but you can check out our calendar at our website, and that's tcdnmra.org. And it'll list our meetings, and then it'll have a link to a calendar with other area events as well. And so you can go to tcdnmra.org and check out those events. So the Modelers Retreat is March 14th. And then we'll have a layout tour. We'll have layout tours in the Twin Cities in April. And so that's what we have. So we have stuff planned. We have meetings and events planned. So we have event in February, event in March, event in April. We'll have the regional convention will be outside of Winnipeg in May, and then we'll have meetings each month as well. And then we hit the summer, and we usually do some picnics during the summer before we gear back up for the fall. So those are my announcements, and just let you know to just jump in and try something. You never know, you might go down some rabbit holes like I did and continue to do, and but I enjoy every minute of it, and I hope you will as well. And with that, I'll say to everybody, have a great weekend.